distracting long enough. Okay. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Discussing Tabletop. It is, of course, March 29th, 2025. I'm being joined today by Worm and Momo, and we're going to be, well, there's a motorcycle outside. I guess it's getting to that season. It's warm out. What are you talking about this place?
It would have been snowplows otherwise.
God, hearing that, Vermont was having blizzards and it's 80 degrees here, it's what the hell weather.
Also, start for the top 10-minute top screen. I brought up something just before we started Candace, and we talked about it for 10 minutes.
It was fine. It would be something for the people that are kind of on the just checking the VODs on Twitch, and those of you that are watching stuff on YouTube. Hey, I'm recording after that. You don't get to see that. You're okay. But yeah. Ooh. I did forget to do something here. I can go to the docket and check. Docket. Well, I hope everybody's had a great week. We were just chatting a little bit about some things here and stuff. So, how do both of you think your weeks went? Well, again, I was chatting with Momo. Worm, since you kind of popped in here last, how was your week? Do you think it was?
Honestly, my week was pretty good because my boss was not in a mood this week, like it has been for the past 4 weeks.
That's one of those things that when you've got someone in charge in a mood and it affects things, you're you just don't want it.
It's just because his mood he's just in this mood, and he was just scrutinizing everything and being real negative, and it was just especially when you're the one who basically answers directly to him. I basically act as his secretary, his tech help, so
makes sense.
Yeah.
Momo, how, other than some stories you were telling me, how did your week end up?
It was very nice. We watched plenty of movies. I got my good friend River addicted to watching The Rookie, which is a very good show, with Nathan Fillion, and then we played board games. I can talk about those board games in a bit.
I'm hoping everything was going well for River.
It was a good vacation. I spent most of it being pinned down by 3 very affectionate dogs.
That's the thing is, I do like dogs, I just don't like owning dogs.
I was very happy.
I like both cats and cats and dogs. I'm allergic to cats though, so I'll never have them.
Yeah, I have my preference though. I like my animal, which is slightly less work for me personally, and also is generally speaking not as affectionate most of the time. When the few times I've been able to physically visit Joe, he's got a dog. It's a little too big for me. His dog is nice, but I'm just not a big dog person. I think my week was fine. A little less chaotic in a lot of ways, but a little, still hoping for that week that ends up just being a little bit more stable. And when I make a schedule, I don't have other things come up and interfere with that, One of these weeks, life won't mess around. Alright. Shall we dive into our topics, though, today? We can chat about some other things later. Oh, no? No? You got some more to include and to introduce to us? To bring forth?
No, just being contrary.
No, we're not doing the show today, actually.
Then I guess we can kind of stand around here and be like, so, how about that weather and/or local sports teams?
Hey, basketball started, so,
honestly didn't know that, but of course it's one of those things that's I never know when anything starts sports-wise.
Let's
go, local sports ball team.
Exactly. But I'm not against sports, I just don't follow any. But yeah. Alright, hey. We can talk a little bit about Paizo and some adventure paths. First off, for the current upcoming adventure path, the Shades of Blood, the Player's Guide's out. So that's always a good one.
Woo.
Yeah. I have to reset your... Make you... There we go. I need a better link for this.
My side monitor was very dusty.
And then I also have that we got an announcement about a adventure path coming out in December. So the next, not the next one after the Shades of Blood.
You did just link their Blue Sky. You didn't link to anything specific.
Yes, because they don't have a good link for it yet.
Oh,
you have to go to their stream on Twitch where they talk about it.
Oh, okay.
Where they've made an announcement and did a bunch of stuff for it. They don't have a page for it yet, because this was yesterday that they made this big announcement. So, it's breaking-ish news? Anyway, to summarize at least the Shades of Blood we talked about, it's like, Aslanti vampires are reawakening, and you have to deal with them. It's set in the small settlement that was, I think, settled during the previous, Aslanti adventure path, but it's supposed to be like 10 years after it. Can't remember the name of that adventure path off the top of my head because there's a lot of them, and that's me remembering. But it takes place in Talmandor's Bounty, which is a settlement that is like you defend and settle in that previous adventure path. So I do like looking at the. Okay, I was gonna say I do like in the book I did read a little bit of it. They do say like you can't play those characters because that was a high level adventure. But you could be related to them, or be like, connected with them in some way if you want to. If you played it. Your own adventures. Which is kind of neat. They do actually say that. But, seems like a neat one. With some more backgrounds and stuff. But, so the big announcement is, we're getting this is technically the 4th adventure path that deals with, Thassalon and the Runelords. Number 4, with the Revenge of the Runelords, is the adventure path that's going to come out in December. Which, one of the dead ones comes back from the dead. Because if you don't, the storyline, over the course of 3 adventures, 5 of the Runelords died, 2 have survived, one's still kind of evil, the other one went, evil doesn't work out, being like a horrible monster that does a lot of terrible things. Let's change our ways. Being a 10,000-year-old person and all, you got to make some changes to your life. Anyway, one of them comes back. One of the ones that's dead. And so storyline revolving on that. We only know a little bit about like the like if you look on the wiki site, they do have a little bit of information on the 2. First 2 of the 3 part ones, and we don't know the others. So it'll be Lore of the Trinity Star and Crypt Runes, and Into the Apocalypse Archive is the last one, but we know nothing about it. But yeah, it's Runelord Zandragul returns, which is a name, and it is a mythic adventure. So I think you start at level 12. So decent level there. Probably go to like 20, I'd assume.
Oh, you start at level 12 for this adventure?
Yeah.
That's interesting, because the main town starts at is a level 4 town.
Oh, anyway. Are you talking about the other one? I'm talking about Revenge of the Runelords, not the Shades of Blood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was giving some basic information on that. Because again, that's in October, November, December. So again, we got some information on some upcoming adventure paths. Seems like interesting ones. Shades of Blood seems neat, dealing with vampires and stuff. And the Runelords stuff has always been pretty big on a lot of their main storylines. I mean, Rise of the Runelords was the first adventure path they published, so yeah.
Yeah. Shades of Blood takes place in a series of islands located in the middle of the Arcadian Ocean.
Yep.
Between
it's where a continent
Aviston and Arcadia.
There used to be a continent there until a giant meteorite exploded it.
Sounds about right.
Yep. That's a very Pathfinder thing. Yeah, no, I think, I'm enjoying that we get a lot of very interesting storylines, but, researching and looking into these 2 things, it does remark on, and this is something that I just want to say about the adventure paths. there's so many of them that have canon endings. The fact is, it's really hard to find out what those canon endings are. Yes. Like in the actual, like, I'm sorry, we need something that just tells us it somewhere. I tried looking up, no one talks about it or has it, like, put together. I'm like, ugh. And I understand,
canon
like...
endings for what?
All the adventure paths. Like, let's say, having played through my version of the Curse of the Crimson Throne, Crimson Queen, there is a canon ending to that storyline.
Which is, you know, the queen dies and...
The queen dies, yeah. And what's-her-face, I can't remember, becomes the new queen, regent. It's usually the very simple storylines that usually match a lot of what's going on in the storyline. Skull to Shackles. You know, the adventurers defeat the guy, and then the other lady that you were working with becomes the pirate queen. Like, there isn't a lot to it, but knowing what those happen in the storyline is pretty good sometimes to understand what's going on in the overall when these are, like, happening after each other. So it's sort of like, I kind of want somewhere that just tells me, this is what we're using as the canon ending for these things, so you know. But it's really hard to find online. Pulling nails, trick fun it. Anyway, there's me ranting about that for, you know, a minute.
That's fine.
Yeah. Just, I got a little annoyed when I was looking up with the adventure pass and stuff.
Actually, I just realized that you actually are in the islands in the Arcadian Ocean, which is kind of where Aslan was, which is closer to Arcadia than to Varisia, or to the Saga Lands.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because that might imply that they might be releasing something for Arcadia soon, because they're moving kind of closer to it with their plot lines.
That would be good. We have had 2 adventures in this place, and that even the island region of former Aslan is an interesting region, because, yeah, there's a lot of people settled there, but there could be a lot of adventures there, and now there is this town here. It's also the thing that, like, because the Revenge of the Runelords is supposed to be more of a global thing, I'm interested in where they're going in it, because it does say it's kind of global. And I do like, because again, sometimes we get adventure paths that at least visit some of these places, and we can learn a little bit about it. That's why we know some of the Arcadian countries are because of some adventure paths and adventures that are like, it takes place in this country. Here's all the information about it. Thanks. Okay.
Also, the Pathfinder map on the Pathfinder Wiki website now kind of does a globe feature, which I actually think is really cool, because it kind of shows how everything fits together in a more 3D way.
Yes, I do like the globe too. I do. It's kind of neat.
I just noticed that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's continue onward. I had a little rant on Pathfinder for a minute, just so you know. Paizo, you have them. Please, just somewhere, give us the canonical ending. So, to
I think
capitalize...
they decide on the canonical ending when they want to make something else based off of it.
Or write a book that has to mention it. Probably. Yeah. Like a lot of their big like lore books, they'll be like, "Hey, here's the canonical ending."
I feel like that's the point.
I know it's the point, but like you know,
you want to know. I get it. I kind of do.
I would at least for the ones that they have done that with, for them to mention it. Like all the first edition ones have canonical endings. And we have like a list of those about what happens, you know, just together in one place. So to capitalize on the movie that came out, hey, Renegade's doing a Transformers 1 source book for their Transformers RPG. I am surprised that they did this quick in a way, but also not surprised because again, like Transformers 1, I don't think it did gangbusters.
It didn't do super great because it just had like no marketing.
But from everybody that I heard from both, you know, bigger reviewers and smaller reviewers, they liked it. You know,
everyone I've heard is like, this is a really good movie, and they should have marketed it more.
Yeah, So it's like the people that did see it liked it, so I can understand, you know, probably the people that are in the Transformers fandom that happen to be the people that you want to be playing the Transformers RPG would like this and maybe want to play this this area, this version / time period. Because I guess it's one of those things. This Transformers has like a million different weird canons in a way too. Sometimes. Yeah. Honestly, this is one of those things. Is like they've been putting out books for the Transformers that feel like they're very much connected to the original storyline. I would personally also like them because in the interim, there were some other Transformers series and stuff that were like, you know, other versions of stuff, which I thought were pretty good over the years. I think doing more of those kind of things wouldn't be bad. Was there other, I thought there was another, franchise that did this kind of, that, we've talked about. I can't think of it right now, where it's had kind of multiple versions and they've had books kind of focusing on different ones a little bit. But
I mean, besides the Star Trek game, none comes to mind.
Yeah, that's kind of there, but they technically are mostly the same storyline. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, again, like it's also like giving people locations on Cybertron, which I guess is like a big thing for if you're doing Transformers games that I don't know if it had a lot before in other books. So that's cool. I like Transformers. I'm probably not the big fans of it, but again, like I always thought that Renegade could do some interesting RPG books, and I'm glad they're doing more books like this. So, if you're interested in it, it's on for pre-order. Let me see what date. They're planning for September release. Cool. So, keep an eye on it. Alright. So, next big thing. Hey, we mentioned this was coming up. It is now live. The Alien RPG, like second edition / I want to get without the. I'm trying to get
RPG slasher book. No.
I guess
it is actually if you think about it. Kind of assassinate people from the vents.
So it's Free League Press and 20th Century Fox, and they call it their Evolved Edition, but it's kind of like a second edition, maybe kind of a 1.5. That's kind of where it's at with it.
I'm hoping it makes some improvements, because while I do like the Alien RPG, it does have some issues.
Yeah. I also linked the archive from Free League's site for the news, because they say this is going to have, other than the updated rules, a starter set, a adventure set, miniatures line, and a Last Survivor solo game mode. Which I'm curious if that is, like, truly solo or one person and a DM solo, which are both different options for, solo RPGs. Both exist.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know. They are very funded.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty popular franchise, so it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with you. I'm definitely curious as to how they've updated the rules and stuff.
Because previously, one of the things with at least the base book, is it's very much expected that you need to bring multiple characters to the game.
Interesting.
Which is not everyone's vibe, obviously.
Yeah.
Then you have the Marines book, which is a lot more action-oriented.
Yeah. let's see here. They say revised and expanded stealth mode, revised and expanded talents, revised stress and panic rules, revised rules for ammo and armor, revised rules for grenades and stuns, zero gravity rules, miniatures play support, weapon strips from alien anomalous, revised spaceship combat, expanded campaign play tools. The life path character creation.
Okay, so it is just a complete overhaul of the original game, which is good. So yeah, this would be like a 1.5 kind of deal, I think.
Yeah, I think because, like, again, I don't know how they're going to evolve it. It could still be considered if they ever do more of these, the second edition, but we can kind of call it, it's their evolve, it's their 1.5 at least for now. Depending on how things go for RPG series, depends on what it is. And of course, they do have a redesigned starter set that's supposed to be a starting player. Okay, cool. And they're doing the Hope's Last Day adventure that people were fans of, but they're expanding it a little bit. So
that's good.
You know, I definitely do think it's good to take, like, hey, we had this adventure that people really liked, and we're going to expand upon it and put it with the starter set, you know. Okay. And then a new... Oh, the Cinemax Scenario box set, I guess, is the big, like, campaign one. And they're doing Rapture Protocol, they call it. Pretty new. And of course, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very needed thing, like, addition update. Because I do like the Alien RPG, but it's got some glaring issues to it.
I kind of wanted to try it out, but I was always... I'm not going to lie. I always felt like if I was going to try it out, I was going to do it with the Marine stuff, because as much as I do like Aliens, I really... Or Alien, I'm really more a fan of Aliens in the end.
That's completely fair, I think.
Yeah, just... That's the part of the franchise that really won me over. Like, I like the action, but I still like the horror
cheesy action movie.
Cheesy action movie with the still a bit of that horror, but not as much of the like overwhelming deep space horror. Having you know, but I do like Alien, the original movie too. Not a lot of that, still. Yeah, they don't say much about The Last Survivor. They say it's just complete solo rules. Where you're the sole survivor of a disaster, outbreak, or incursion, must use cunning, adaptability to overcome odds and tell the tale. I would want to know more about how that works, but they don't really say a lot here. Within the Kickstarter. And they've unlocked all their extended goals, so...
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. I've never just been a fan of just the Alien franchise a ton. I think it's interesting, but I've just never been a big fan of it.
I can understand that, though, too, because it's sort of like, having enjoyed the first two movies, I don't really like any other ones, but I like some of the extended material outside of that stuff.
Comic books are pretty good.
I like the comic books, yeah.
I mean, yeah, my whole thought on it really is just cool. There's a like crazy like okay, here's my question. In anything do they ever, like you said, the comic books are good, do they actually ever explore where the aliens came from?
Yeah, that's a big part of the comic books is dealing with that.
I mean, you could always go by
there's multiple like sources. It's a muddied canon because Prometheus was eventually made, which is a trash movie that established trash things.
Yeah, basically, a bunch of the comics and stuff had explored that, and then they did Prometheus too.
And then no one accepts Prometheus,
and everybody dislikes it. Yeah.
Yeah, because my whole thought on that is like, okay, there's one creature. If it reaches Earth, it can destroy it. It breeds. It's blah blah blah. It's a bioweapon. Cool. We know the fact that it's a bioweapon, I'm not sure is, or I think it's figured out at some point. Anyway, but it's like, cool. We have all this. I think it's also made in like the Alien vs. Predator movies that they were made to fight the Predators or something.
Yeah, it's a little muddied depending on the source, but Because at this point, the comics and the movies are so divergent from each other. They're two separate canons.
Yeah, but my whole thing is just that there's very little of actual substance besides Alien breaks free. Other plot things happen that are related more to the characters in this local setting, but otherwise you never find out more about the grand scheme of things, really. And that's what bothers me about the Alien franchise. Is just like, cool, Alien, neat.
They get kind of freaky with some of the stuff in some of the comics.
I did really enjoy some of the original Alien vs Predator games. The first and second one were actually pretty good too. Granted, I don't think they explored a lot of story in those.
Those movies aren't very good.
No, the movies aren't. The video games. But again, like, it's also like, there was a lot of really... Because I remember reading a bunch of the comic books and stuff from the Alien vs Predator comics, and those were actually... had some really interesting and good exploring stories about it. That it was less that, you know, like, the Predators created them, and more like the Predators... It was like man... was a good prey because they're unpredictable and adaptable kind of thing, you know. But these things were good prey because they're really dangerous.
It all started because in Predator 2, they put an alien skull in the movie as an Easter egg.
Yeah.
So now they're fully connected universes.
So there's a lot of stuff in these.
Yeah, the comics are a little freaky with the origins of the creatures.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to find stuff out because, like, the original Alien movie, and this is like, again, the original Alien movie having the descent into this big crazy cavern, and there's almost this like religious iconography type stuff, and then it's like never explored again, and it's just like,
that would have been cool if Prometheus didn't ruin that.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's my thought on the whole Alien franchise, and why I'm just like, it's okay. It never answers any of the questions that I have, so who cares?
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that, and they do have sources that kind of hint at it, but again, it's sort of like you have to go beyond a lot of the movies, unfortunately.
Yeah, the novels and comics really do all the heavy lifting for the lore and stuff.
Because Prometheus and its sequel do really terrible things, and then I don't think Romulus explores anything, because Romulus, the latest one, just basically
Romulus is a return to form.
It's just basically like another Alien movie.
It's a return to form. It uses some of the ideas from Prometheus in a better way.
Yeah. Which is good, but again, then we're not really like deep diving, exploring a lot, because Prometheus is... I forget the one that's in the middle.
Covenant, which is actually like an okay movie if you ignore the middle of it.
There's also some like weird lore stuff that I knew that happened in there that was like unusual, but I guess like it's, if you ignore like the lore stuff, it's like a good movie like on its own.
You get a scene of Michael Fassbender basically making out with himself. It's real weird.
Yep. Look, these were movies.
They're not very good.
Look, I'm not gonna lie, the fourth Alien movie wasn't very good either. So, the original group of them. So.
Yep.
It's a franchise.
People mostly remember the first two movies.
Yep. I guess that's why, like, all these books are based on the first two movies.
Yeah,
and now Romulus, because...
Forget the third movie and the fourth movie ever happened.
I don't think the third movie was bad. I still think it was...
Oh,
it was like a step
the third
down.
movie got, like, screwed over by a lot of production issues.
That's what I've heard.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. But, so yeah, if you want to check out the Kickstarter yourself, please do that. Alright. We got some interesting stuff. I wanted to talk about this one because it's weird in a lot of ways. But apparently, there is a Battletech cookbook.
I heard
it's
about
going to retail. So it has food and drink recipes that are Battletech inspired.
I mean, if they're real recipes, sure. That's fine.
Ooh.
But a lot of these cookbooks that are like IP themed tend to just be a novelty that you really will never cook things from.
That's true, and that's the one I kind of want to like see what they have.
I don't have access to like it doesn't say what any of the recipes are. Because I mean, these are foods that appear in the universe.
Yeah,
but it's like I mean, there's a Halo cookbook, and Halo doesn't mention food in it at all.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's an interesting idea, these like cookbooks and stuff like that, but really, to be useful, it has to go in one of two directions. Like, one direction, because they can go one of two directions with it. They could do, or actually, they can go three ways. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of more as I'm talking about this. They could make it's just fantasy recipes for story-wise, which is neat, but really not helpful, you know?
Yeah, like, if you can actually cook things out of it, cool. Otherwise, it's a little rough.
And then, I agree.
I was going to say, for actual cooking, you can either have it, like, actual, unique, interesting recipes,
it's like,
or just generic
I
stuff.
have a couple of, like, IP licensed cookbooks. Like, the Final Fantasy one is quite good. But food is also a huge part of Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
The D&D cookbook's really good, surprisingly.
That's surprising. Honestly, I thought that would have been more of a cash round of just, like, it's themed after it, but it's just simple recipes.
That's basically what it is. It's just, like, a themed cookbook with actual recipes.
Okay, so I guess that's not too bad, though,
It's a functional cookbook with, like, a fun twist to it.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, if it's at least functional cookbook, and they, like, try some things that are, like, this makes it at least feel like it's fitting with the theme, you know, the type of recipe, rather than just, like, because I feel like, you know, looking at some of the names of some of these things here, because they talk about, on the little article here, how some of the crowdfunding backers help suggest the names and stuff. If it's just, like, a mac and cheese dish, what makes it the Battletech mac and cheese dish, you know? That's the kind of way I want to say for it, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I like, is there food in Battletech? I don't even know what Battletech is,
Battletech's
honestly.
it's like a miniatures game, but it also does have a role-playing game attached to it, but they don't really ever mention food in this franchise.
They mention a lot of, like, basics of some cultures that are there, because it's supposed to be, like... What's a good way to describe it?
I might mention them in, like, the books, because there are, like, 100, like, novels for this series.
It's space knights, but it's knights that fight in, like, giant robots.
Yeah, it's basically Galaxy had big civil war, now everyone fight each other in mech suit.
So lots of little, like, kingdoms and groups and stuff like that might have one planet or multiple planets together, you know. And then, like, they're your normal, like, actual, like, knight type people, but there's also, like, those that are more like mercenaries or, like, you know, workers that just do, like, more of the dirty work.
They continue to try to revive this franchise. I don't think it's ever worked.
Catalyst has put out a couple books for it, at least, so it feels like it's kind of like, it's not dead.
Yeah,
it's not like...
it's in a weird place, because it truly is not a popular franchise.
It's sort of like, I know Shadowrun doesn't have the same popularity as something like Cyberpunk, but still, plenty of people I know still have some favoritism towards Shadowrun. You know, it's still a little bit more niche, but it's not as niche as Battletech, unfortunately. You know,
Battletech is pretty niche. It's also like, I mean, it's a really fun universe, but it has over 100 novels.
God, I'm not gonna lie. I was not a fan of the video game. It was very good, and I could recognize it was very good. But
I would have liked the video game if the video game didn't have facing.
The facing sucked. It was just one of those games that I was playing, and I'm like, this is not for me. You know, this is not a type of game I enjoy. This
I like the Mech Warrior games, but those are a little different.
Yeah. Interesting product, though. You know,
Has
I would
potential. It just depends.
I forgot how many
Yeah.
companies this franchise has bounced around to. God, it's been owned by like 5 different companies.
Yeah, I think it's been a Catalyst for a while now.
It's been in Catalyst's hands since 2007.
Yeah. But
It was at
before
one
that-
point owned by WizKids.
Yeah, it bounced around for a little while there. Who had it first? Was it also FASA?
Yes, FASA owned it originally.
So at least it's a sister game
Yeah.
to Shadowrun. You know, since FASA had both.
Yep. I don't know, this cookbook could be cool if it's like a functional cookbook.
It's one of those ones that I think, if you're interested in it, maybe see if they give like some previews of a couple of recipes somewhere. You can find those out, just like 1 or 2, to see how interesting the recipes are, and you get an
I'm
idea.
gonna do a search to see if I can find.
I didn't have a good name.
Found the like. Yeah, I don't see any previews for it.
Cookbook, Cosmic Games. It's got a link over there, but that's not helpful. I'm just trying to see if that was so. No. Yeah, I don't have that. I don't see anything right now. Yeah, no. I guess we might have to wait for. You might have to wait for it to come out or something. So.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like, I think I'm most of all surprised that we're getting this. You know,
It's a little bit of a weird one.
Yeah. Speaking of surprise, because not that this franchise was dead, but we haven't really heard anything new from it in a while. But Starcraft is getting a miniatures game and board game.
No, see, here's the thing. I think it is fair to say StarCraft is a dead franchise because the last game was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So they're getting a tabletop miniature game next year and a board game in 2027.
I mean, cool. Good luck. Godspeed. You're not going to get into that market. I'm sorry. It's already an oversaturated one.
Yeah.
I mean, cool. But StarCraft is not like a super beloved franchise these days.
Is it still being played? In, like,
No,
Nintendo
StarCraft
places?
2 is basically dead.
Okay.
I know the remake of StarCraft 1 is still reasonably popular, but I think StarCraft 2 is just dead because they killed the competitive scene for it.
Okay. See, like,
Wow.
that's the thing. Oh, you something to say, Worm?
Oh no, sorry. I was just gonna say, yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure stuff out. You guys continue.
Okay. It is very interesting, though, too. It does, like, according to this article, Fantasy Flight had the license in 2008. So, I mean, that's a long time ago.
That would have been more relevant.
Yeah.
Okay. I finally found the timeline. Yeah, so StarCraft, so StarCraft 2 was the was the last one released. It was released in 2010. Its last update, you could say, or DLC, was 2016. And then there was StarCraft Remastered, released in 2017, and that's the last thing that's been StarCraft.
Yeah, it's been like a hot minute since they cared about this franchise.
It's one of those things. It's because it's been so long since then. That's pretty long, and like
I'm wondering if this is because Microsoft owns Blizzard and is just digging in and seeing like what can we pull from this to make money. Because a lot of Blizzard IPs are currently dead except for Warcraft.
Yeah, I guess because World of Warcraft still continues.
Like Warcraft and Overwatch are the only two things that are really still around from Blizzard.
Huh.
I guess Diablo, but Diablo kind of fell off really hard.
Yeah, I mean, when they just destroyed 4.
Yeah.
we had what? We had the 1-2 punch of the mobile game, and then
The mobile game
having
and then
the
Diablo
shit.
4.
Yeah, and like, I feel like it's that thing from what I've like heard. Diablo 4 had like a core, maybe something that could have been good, but the one with the stuff they did around it just fucked it up. It was Diablo, but you know they just fucked a lot of stuff around.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
sort of like.
Yeah, I don't know. Could be cool. It just doesn't feel, relevant these days, I guess.
The one thing I remember about StarCraft, and I just will always remember this for some reason. It takes up space in my brain, real estate in my brain for no reason. I just remember that StarCraft 2 on launch had a bug where there was no frame rate limiting on the title screen, and it would like just drag, so it would just, because it was basically almost a static image with only a little bit of stuff going on, it would just like overload people's computers because it was like, I can render this like crazy because it's so simple, and it just would like go to like 1,000,000 FPS and just blow up your computer. Not literally, it wasn't like bad. I think it just crashed or something.
Yeah, it would just crash. But that was a bug. I don't know, StarCraft sits in a weird place for me because, truthfully, I'd rather play Dawn of War 2.
I'm not gonna lie. For that type of game, I'd rather Command and Conquer. I did a bunch of Command and Conquer.
Like StarCraft, it doesn't.
Halo Wars for me.
StarCraft doesn't have a lot going for it, besides just like narrative, which they kind of ruined with 2, in my opinion. It just kind of retreads the narrative of the first game a little too much.
Yeah. I will note for Command and Conquer, I had owned, but I never played them because the computer I had actually had some issues. So, and then by the time we got a new computer, it wouldn't play it anymore. So I never did any of the Red Alert ones, even though I owned one of them. So the things with like the space, I never got to see that great stuff. I got to see the weird guy, the bald guy that was like, the Brotherhood
or whatever
Nod.
his name was.
And I had the Brotherhood of Nod, or I think it was.
The Red Alert series is good, but it's hard for me to be like, yeah, we should bring StarCraft back, when StarCraft is a franchise that kind of like took from a lot of existing things that are just better currently.
Well, realizing that wasn't StarCraft supposed to be originally Warhammer themed, so why don't just do a... But the thing is, you can't do a Warhammer miniatures game, so it's more like, we want to kind of do a Warhammer miniatures game, but we can't, so we do StarCraft.
Yeah. It's weird.
I hope they would be well, but again, I don't know.
It'll depend on costs, how well this will do, because the miniatures game space is really hard to break into at the moment, because obviously the Warhammer game is kind of dominated, but you have a lot of new skirmish games coming out pretty recently.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. We've seen uptick in skirmish games over the last few years, so good luck to them. We'll see more on them next year, I guess. Maybe we'll talk again then when it's released.
I hope they prove me wrong.
I agree too.
I'm actually inclined to agree with that.
Yeah. I worry for them, but I do hope for them the most success, at least to be decent. So we're getting a 40th anniversary edition of a game that I've heard of by name, but know very little about. The Tales of the Arabian Nights board game. I've heard of this one, but I don't think I've ever played it, nor know much about
this board game somewhere.
Yeah. So it's coming out third quarter of this year. Let's see here.
Yeah, I think I have this, but I've never played it.
The current version of it that they're using was originally released in 2009 via Z-Man Games. So they're using, I think, the updated version, not the original 70s version of it.
Yeah, I would hope it's not the 70s version. I imagine that one's a little insensitive.
Definitely. It's one of those things I'm like, definitely insensitive. But 1975. I'm sure, wasn't going to be very sensitive to the, Middle Eastern cultures.
No, most likely not. But I mean, just looking at like the board of this game, it looks pretty fun. That's the kind of vibe. It's the vibe of this is a kind of game I would definitely be into.
Yeah.
It looks like a very management kind of game.
Yeah. Actually, I find it funny because I saw a picture of like the little figurines and Aladdin is literally just kind of like a off-branded Disney Aladdin.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm like, well, this is very clearly they were trying to,
Legally
make
distinct.
this a thing. Legally distinct Aladdin.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting, that we got like board games like this that have a legacy that we can get new updated versions of here and there. Definitely, it's good. I'm sorry, it was 85. I was saying 75, but still. So it was originally West End Games. I was trying to look up that information. And then we had the reissue by Z-Man Games in 2009, revised and expanded, and this is based on that one. So, yeah, hey, it's technically a classic. 40 years is enough time to be a classic, so getting a
yeah, it's a classic game.
big version of it.
I mean, it's based on one of the like a really old folk story that's cool. So
Yeah. Shahrazad, the original Aladdin, Sinbad, a lot of those tales. The 1001 Arabian Nights. Was that the set of tales, I believe?
Mm-hmm.
That's me trying to remember things, so, my brain don't remember things good. Yeah. Keep an eye on it if you're interested in checking it out. A little bit of the classic. Alright. So we're almost to...
Friends. I might get this. This looks fun.
So have you ever wanted to stab Julius Caesar?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay.
Constantly.
There we go.
He invented salad, so I hate him. No, I'm just kidding.
So we're getting the board game, which is apparently also kind of a social board game, social deduction board game. Maybe I'd say 23 Knives. So players take on one of the three factions that are either Caesar loyalists, liberators of Rome, or simple opportunists that want to take advantage of the situation, and basically support the correct side right before they win. So the opportunists basically are playing both sides, trying to find that perfect thing. So that's interesting that they got the three groups there.
It's like, God, was it Bang that has like the three groups?
Yeah, that have
like that.
You're either like the sheriff, the outlaw,
Sheriff, outlaw, and then whatever the other guy
like
was.
the renegade or something. Yeah. So, basically, if you're part of the liberators, you kill Caesar. If you're the loyalist, you save Caesar. It's meant for 3 to 8 players, so I guess you have one of each faction. So you know your faction, but you don't know which other players would then be. So, like, if you're a loyalist, you don't know which one is the opportunist that you want to sway with you, or who's the one that's going to be, like, the liberator that you have to go against. So I guess even with, 3 players, but 3 to 8, 30 to 60 minutes, they say. It's an interesting idea. I would like to see more on how the board game works.
They do, yeah, and it's like, but it doesn't really explain much.
That's the thing is, sometimes you have to just gonna find the maybe the rules online. They might, but since it's like, I like that they've got the little 3D.
Okay, so you got like a
stairs.
character.
I do like you have the little 3D stairs as part of the event. Let me see if I can.
Also, I do find it really interesting that their pictures of the people are very interesting because they're like, one of them's a bust, one of them's like a painting, one of them is like a coin, and it makes you think like, okay, these are actually like real images of these people that they got from various sources.
Yep.
And even though they're all now like drawn onto here, they draw them from the source, which is a neat idea. Actually, that's a really neat little direction they went with that.
Okay, I found a link on There.
I have the Kickstarter, which has the rules, by the way,
Okay.
or how to play rather.
Okay. Let me. I think I saw that. I'll grab that. Oh, there's. I'll grab that. But there's also their site. So yeah, the rules would be up on their Kickstarters. So look at that, and then there's also their site there for it.
I really like these kind of games, so I'd be into this.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting little it's an interesting historical moment that's very it's kind of neat, and it does have that little bit of social manipulation too, and also a little bit of interest there. Sounds like a little fun thing.
Mm-hmm.
So. Cool. So there's 23 knives. We stab Caesar or save? Good question. Alright, so Warhammer. Adepticon did have a lot of stuff about it. So
yeah, there was a lot of Warhammer news.
Put the two
I gotta pull up the... I'm gonna pull up the actual Warhammer article.
I'll grab
the Goonhammer article contains a lot of interviews.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of stuff got announced, which I wasn't expecting this to happen while I was on goddamn vacation.
Sometimes it happens that way.
So Space Wolves are getting a codex, which is wild, which also likely means to me that they're bringing back Lehman Russ soon. They're giving them a codex.
Okay.
Which is good because I like the Space Wolves. Space Wolves are my second favorite Space Marine chapter. They announced another Crusade book. It's Armageddon and the Grey Knights. They might finally be finishing the Armageddon storyline after 20 goddamn real years of writing this storyline.
Wow.
The storyline's been ongoing for a long time.
Huh.
It first appeared in 2003.
Wow. That's a storyline.
It is an ongoing thing.
Is it just that they don't?
The Armageddon is originally it was a little battle codex for you could play games on this planet and you can determine the outcome, and then because they do a lot of this stuff. Well, they release little battle reports in magazine format, or they used to. Mm-hmm. Here's a planet, here's a scenario. You can use these for your narrative games. They don't do it so much anymore because 40K is much less of a narrative game now.
Okay.
But maybe they'll finally finish this storyline off, and the Grey Knights are getting their own codex, which is wild to me because they kind of suck currently.
I don't know much about them.
So what is getting a codex?
So codex means when a faction gets a codex, it gives them advanced, more specific rules to them, as well as more lore.
So it would be I assume miniatures are out there from over the time period.
Grey Knight miniatures exist, and you would just generally use the rules that come with them in the box and the general Space Marine rules. Yeah. But when they get a codex, they get more specific rules and things they can take and do.
So it'd be special rules.
It's a few special rules and alternate options, I'm guessing.
And the nice thing about codex is there's several apps that just have the rules from the codex in there. The only thing to note is you can't have those at official tournaments because Games Workshop has a big old stick up their butt about it.
Well, yeah, they want
to sell their actual book, which
make money.
Makes sense. But it also looks like we're getting a new, Dreadnought, which looks dope as hell in the Armageddon Crusade Grey Knight stuff. Looks real cool.
Cool.
Anything else? Three Chaos Codexes at the same time. Oh god, we're getting World Eater stuff. we're getting Death Guard, and we're getting Thousand Suns stuff.
Okay.
So all the Chaos factions are now going to be fully good to go with 10th edition, which is nice, because I am a Chaos player, and I love Chaos.
So, basically, this is kind of filling out the rest of the Chaos.
Yeah, it's basically like... because I don't know how much longer 10th edition has in it. Usually they swap editions every couple of years. 10th edition is still relatively new. I think, like 2 years ago.
Okay.
I'm just going to check that. When did 10th edition launch? 2 years ago.
Okay.
So it's still got quite a bit of life in it.
Gotcha.
We're getting a new mission deck, which is for like sort of smaller games that basically give you like little objectives and objective points. Right, like it would be your deployment and that kind of stuff. You get your points to win your game. That's relatively small.
Slightly random question. I saw something. I was scrolling down like on the list here, and I saw Old World. Is Old World?
So Old World is like the original Warhammer Fantasy that they kind of brought back and cleaned up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like the Horus Heresy equivalent of Warhammer Fantasy.
Okay.
Reading some more stuff. Who is this? I think the Bone Skeleton Men are getting some cool stuff as well. Train packs, more minis.
Just as a question, with the 3 Chaos ones, would that be another Chaos Primarch in any of those?
So, no, because all of the main Chaos of the Lords have their Demon Primarchs out.
Gotcha. I was just curious about that because we were getting the Fulgrim, was it?
We're getting Fulgrim's back, and he's, I think, not coming out for a little bit because Games Workshop does this staggered release stuff with armies, which is super annoying when you want to build an army, by the way.
But I remember we were talking about him a while ago for the Chaos Primarch, so I was just curious.
I think we're still missing Pertriabo. I don't think he's got a mini yet.
Huh.
And some of them, like, I gotta look up who are all the.
And then,
go ahead.
My question is, would we be getting is it for Space Wolf, Leman Russ? Do I remember correctly?
Yeah, Leman Russ is the Space Wolf Primarch.
Would we get a miniature for him? Would we get Space Wolf miniatures too?
We would get a special model for him that would be with its own special rules. It's like a leader kind of guy who's super powerful.
Gotcha. Okay.
The fact that giving Space Wolves the Codex really makes you think they're bringing Leman Russ back next. Because he's the kind of one of the 3 that makes the most sense to bring back relatively easily, because he just kind of went off into the Eye of Terror to do warp stuff.
Yeah.
Kill things, go on some kind of pilgrimage.
I feel like with the ones they have around in the storyline, from what I know of, he kind of fits in that for like the good guys group, because like it's not because they'd all get along, but they all make good, interesting stories to have Lionel, Gilliman, and him. They butt heads in interesting ways. I feel like from what I've heard about this.
I think they're going to probably do 2 Loyalist Primarchs for this edition because there's currently only 2 that are back, and there are 4 of the Demon Primarchs that are out or coming out. So I think they're going to bring 2 back.
Gotcha.
And I know that on the little like Codex timeline preview shit they did at the Las Vegas Open, there was a preview for Salamanders. So I think the other one's going to be Vulcan, who they're going to bring back.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's all speculation. None of that's in this announcement. That's my personal opinion.
All right. So I had some questions. We were at Spearhead.
We're at the Spearhead, which I'm not 100% sure what Spearhead is. So I'm not into Sigmar at all. Generally, I assume it's like an army box.
Gotcha.
Looks like it's an army box, yeah. Oh, it's the Bone Reaper stuff, so it's the skeleton guys.
Gotcha. Okay.
We're getting a kill team. I think this is a Mechanicus kill team. It looks like Mechanicus and Tyrannid.
Interesting.
Which is good for those because those guys need new stuff. They haven't gotten a lot of love lately. We're getting Warhammer Old World is getting, I think, some new armies and a big dragon.
Yeah, I can see they're previewing the big dragon there on that one.
Which is pretty cool. I unfortunately don't know a lot about fantasy. It's something I'm trying to get into now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of rough because I don't know where to start with Age of Sigmar, and there's not really like... Because 40k has so many guides on where to start. But because Age of Sigmar is so new still, it's hard to know where to start with that one.
Yeah, it looks like they're showing off the one riding the dragon, which is apparently the Great Spirit Longma, and they also show off the Mao Ying, the Storm Dragon.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And we're getting... it looks like Elves and Beastmen are getting some updates for Old World.
Yeah, all I know about Sigmar is, unfortunately, I've seen some people play Vermin High. I know about them fighting the rat people.
Yeah, Sigmar had a really bad launch, but it's apparently pretty good now, from what people have told me. It's just really hard to get into for me. But there's also more stuff at Adepticon. I think there's some Star Wars miniatures that got announced, but I didn't have time to pour through everything that got announced.
We were already talking about the Warhammer, and I did see a bunch of articles about a bunch of the other miniatures games, and I was just like, we'll just stick to one miniatures game. But
yeah,
a lot of stuff.
I'll post the Adepticon website.
That's probably
because there's a lot of stuff got announced here, and I didn't have time to read through all of it.
Yeah. It was a lot. It's good that we got a lot of stuff from again I've played a few miniatures games.
Weird. Do they release a bunch of stuff every week?
Warhammer, yeah, they do a lot of announcements every week. It's hard to keep up.
I guess it's also because they have so many different they have a lot of factions. So putting out stuff each week for the varying different factions, it might be...
Generally, what you want to look at for Warhammer News is Codex and I think they're called battle books or battle tomes for fantasy. Those are the two big ones. Those signify major rule changes and not just a model that's coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, when we talk about Warhammer, when we talk about Primarchs, those are big models, but a lot of the other stuff, it's just there's some more,
Let me just open the Warhammer News. Between the 27th and 29th, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 announcement articles.
Now, are all these because of Adepticon, or are they just in normal?
Most of them are from Adepticon, and then you've got Heresy Thursday, which is where they show off the Horus Heresy stuff. And they've got, I think, Necromunda Monday is the other one they do, which is where they show stuff off for Necromunda.
I can't not think of the terrible video game now that I know about Necromunda.
Yeah, that game is real bad.
I'm sorry, Necromunda. I know you're
Which is a shame, because the actual skirmish game is really good.
Yeah, I know you're an interesting skirmish game that, it was supposed to be based on, but this video game, when I learned about it, it's ate my brain how bad it was.
It was real bad.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff around Warhammer. A lot of interesting announcements we did it. So,
yep.
If you were interested in checking those out, we got all the different links there. Okay. So, I was looking through my list of topics to talk about today, and I thought about this one because it's something that we've kind of hinted at, talked about a little bit before, and, role balance and party roles. What I mean about that is when you need two balanced roles in a game, and recognizing that, and then how to fill those roles in a party. This stems, unfortunately, from the original old D&D, where really Wizard, Fighter, Rogue is the kind of party
Wizard,
dynamic.
Fighter, Rogue, Cleric, the classic.
Yeah, Wizard, Fighter, Rogue, Cleric. Yeah.
Cleric / Priest. With those four, you'd be square.
Originally, they were called priests, if I remember correctly. So,
and even then,
yeah,
some of the older stuff doesn't even have the priest in them. But yes, that kind of becomes the classic staple of person who casts
and then
blow you up magic.
With Pathfinder, it evolved into Blaster, Striker, Skill Monkey, Cleric.
I mean,
yeah. So so this actually boils down to just something that's actually in game. This came about also studied a lot more in video games, where if you look at something like I'm blanking on all of these things. Overwatch, Valorant, those kind of things. There's a support, tank, and attacker.
Support, tank, DPS,
or offense. Yep. DPS, that's the word. Yeah. It doesn't fit as well in RPGs, but there's a very similar thing of for combat purposes, you have the frontline attacker, the backline either damage dealer or controller, usually a wizard, and then the healer or buffer, debuffer kind of thing.
Yeah.
The one thing that D&D adds, in my opinion, is the skill junkie. I saw a whole video about, is there another thing you could do with another role you could add? And honestly, if you're looking at RPGs, yes, that would be the skill junkie, the skill monkey, the person who can do things outside of
the
combat
traditional
really well.
bard rogue of old.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was this was always something that was in a lot of RPGs, but it really hit in fantasy RPGs at the very least, it really hit the front with 4th edition, where they're here's 4 roles. Yeah.
And then
now,
D&D 4e actually split up some roles into, so they had tank, attacker, controller, and striker,
striker, defender, controller,
and leader.
Yeah. I will also say, having read through and analyzed a lot of 4th edition also does do some good things that makes it that you don't need all the roles all the time. I will say that. You can work without them by the time we get to 4th edition. The best balance would be with having all 4 of them. You don't need all 4 of them at 4th edition.
Yes. So here's the one thing that 4th edition does that that very rarely is done in other editions of D&D or the like, and that is the ability to make enemies target someone. And I shouldn't say make them, but what 4th edition did, and I really do like this, is it gave, as I've heard it put, the defender, it's if you hit me, you have a bad time. If you don't hit me, you have a bad time. And that's the kind of position a real defender is. There isn't really a good tank role in D&D. I was mentioning tank, DPS, support. There isn't really a good tank role other than someone who just gets in someone's face.
The closest in 5e you can get to a traditional tank is honestly a cavalier fighter. Because its whole thing is based around, hey, you have to hit me, or you're going to start suffering penalties if you try to hit someone else. And that's kind of the furthest they've done with it in 5e.
The Paladin does have, and the Paladin has access to the challenge spell. I forget what that's called.
Compelled Duel.
Compel Duel, thank you, yeah. And those are the only two things, yeah, I've, the Cavalier and Compel Duel.
I'm
are
actually
the
gonna
only
check
things
if
that
Glory,
I'm aware of.
Glory or Devotion has something for it, because it might.
Pathfinder has a bit more. Their champion does have a number of abilities that do that kind of stuff.
I think it's one of those things also that...
It still does not have a ton. Or sorry, actually Pathfinder 2E.
5e also
1E doesn't have much of it.
5e also generally did away with needing specific roles in a rigid formula.
Yep. I think that's the
it's
thing.
It's still like somewhat there, but I've done a 5e game where we didn't have a healer at all, and it was fun.
Yeah.
I think,
and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Modern... If you do have a... I'll let you go first.
I was going to say modern day RPGs are better at balancing those things and giving options that you can do stuff to replace them. I was just going to say, like, in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I just remember... I haven't fully experimented with the remaster, but I remember train someone with healing, heal skill. They can heal hit points.
Yep. Maybe
just as good as a cleric. So you can just be a guy that's another class that's also trained in the heal skill, and maybe you're not doing stuff in combat. But like out of combat, I treat your wounds. I heal us up. You don't need a dedicated divine healer.
I mean, there is a lot more downtime with that because the base just healing with the medicine skill, you have like a limit of once per hour. Although I think you can get a feat that reduces it to like once per 10 minutes or once per minute or something like that.
No. I was playing a game with Blaze, I remember, and Blaze was playing a cleric, but also took all a bunch of the heal skill feats. And so they were also using their spells for like attack and buffs. All their healing came from, treat your wounds with my skill. Yeah. So they were just doing all that all the time, you know? And it worked well.
Totally doable. And I was also going to say, like, worst case as a GM, just throw more potions at your players if they don't have a healer. Yeah. You know, and that's also where, you know, if you're missing a key role, the GM actually has a big part in supplying what they need for that. Mm-hmm. You know, if they don't have a like a wizard, you can give them things like bombs and that kind of stuff to help them like get along. You know, like glue bombs and other things to give those kind of debuff effects at a range. And bombs in Pathfinder 2e are a martial weapon, so like anyone who's martial can use them.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about modern games as they are now that we know about. The roles are still there. We really haven't gotten rid of those, like, there is that specific, like, points in time, but the roles have kind of evolved. But the need for them, or the ability for people to basically be able to fill those roles, is a lot easier. You know,
they give you more options to fill those roles and even partially fill those roles.
Yeah. More people can kind of fill that role of, I'm at the front, distracting the enemy. I'm hitting them for big damage. I'm doing skill-based things. I'm doing a magical thing. Or I'm doing healing, you know. Sorry. I think that's good. And again, this is pertaining to fantasy-based things, but it does exist in other... I'll mute myself for a second.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, there are lots of things.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, in other genres and places, it does exist too. I was just going to use some of my knowledge from World of Darkness and Shadowrun to talk about this. Shadowrun has a lot of archetypes. Thing is, when you look at archetypes, they fall under certain purviews. Person with a lot of skills, person with physical combat abilities, person with magical abilities, person with hacking / mechanical abilities. Granted, again, being in a very open system, a lot of players should have a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. You know, so like, you know, you have your specializations, but you should have your literacy working with a lot of... Oh, and also sometimes like a face person doing negotiations and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of combine those roles a lot, but those are roles that do still exist in that system.
Like, Cyberpunk Red is also a very similar way, wherein, like, the two things you absolutely need in a party is you need a med tech, so you have someone who can stop you from dying horrifically,
Mm-hmm.
and you need a fixer, because the fixer is the guy who gets you your jobs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely, like, you cannot play a game without either an NPC doing those in the party or players doing those.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, like, I think, like, even when you talk about things like World of Darkness games, they have those things where you need, like, certain roles. I'm not going to go into specifics of those, because each one is different. But there are specific things that need to be done sometimes in a lot of these game worlds that's sort of like, the point of having these archetypes or these roles in a game is you need a Swiss Army knife, and it has to have these certain tools, because then no matter what problems you face, either of GM's design or of your player's own decisions, they will be ready for it. You know, that's the point of it, having the right tool for the right job.
And I do like how most modern games do tend to take away. Well, they don't take away the skill junkie, but they do kind of make it so it's less necessary. So generally, you don't need as much of a face. Like your wizard can also be your face if you want it to be in more modern games.
Yeah.
With that, so
they allow for more variety in things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a very interesting direction that we've taken. That it does allow, you know, a person can build a character that, you know, does these certain things that can fill up. I think it's. We can all build puzzle pieces, and it's a lot easier to fit those puzzle pieces together. Now, there are times that doesn't always work. You could have a team of a perfectly fine D&D team, and no one has persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
You could get by, but there will be probably problems that will occur because of it, story-wise. Because no one has, you've got no one that can talk good, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's a thing. I mean, at that point, again, and this is where it comes in, where if the players are lacking something that you see as a GM see as important, you have to supply alternatives to your players for those. Like, I actually really do think a big part of party dynamic is the GM compensating for party dynamic. So, like, yeah, if your players don't have a face, make sure that there's ways to, you know, sneak into the building instead of talk their way in, you know, make sure you can intimidate the guards rather than persuade them, you know.
It's definitely something that you have to take the system, you who is running it, and what your players put together, and that will build this complete puzzle that you're kind of putting together. You know, you work within the system you have, but you have to make decisions that are... You still, again, you want to be logical to your game world, you want to be logical to your story, but you're making those adaptations that do make sense of it. You have to think of that. You know, it's sort of like, yeah, you know, maybe you can intimidate this guy. Maybe there's a way to sneak around this guy. Maybe you can just bribe this guy, or something like that, you know, that's, you know, like, that are alternates for this skill that they're not good at, you know, or something like that. Or maybe you give them the opportunity to learn something that they can use against them, so maybe it makes it easier to make that check, or, you know, something like that. So, like, even if they're not good at it, they still could. Stuff like that. Again, also, like, 5e as a system does allow for a lot of these things, because DCs are so low, so even if you're, like, not good at it, they still probably roll it. But, you know, that's a 5e thing.
Yeah, the bounded accuracy.
Yeah.
As a whole, I like bounded accuracy, and I definitely want to try Pathfinder 2e with the no levels to proficiencies, because part of me feels like it's kind of pointless to have those, except they're not. It's a whole thing. So, but
again,
it
does
cause issues. So, no, I know, and it's a whole optional rule. It keeps, but
I was going to say, it's the same way that I do like bounded accuracy, but I've also had problems with the bounded accuracy of 5e sometimes, because it's sort of like, there are certain types of challenges that are very hard to do without making, like, stupidly difficult things, where you're like, this shouldn't be stupidly difficult. But it's trying to like figure out things where it's like, you know,
you want it to challenge one player without making everyone else able to do it, but to do that you have to make it way too challenging, which makes it you have to roll way too high. I get the idea of bounded accuracy being a problem. It's
again,
just
it has a
I find it
lot
less
for
of
me,
one.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why when I do 5e, that's why I like to use 2d10, so that way it has a curve. So that way if you're actually good at something, you actually have a higher chance of succeeding, rather than an equal chance, or rather than like, okay, it adds 5%, rather than like, oh no, like, okay, if you're higher, it actually adds even more.
But I think all this comes down to, you have to recognize, you know, if I'm running a system, what in that system are the kind of things a player are going to do? I think you have to kind of ask yourself that first, before you, like, as you're kind of, like, working with your team. And then you have to, like, look at your players and see what of those things that they are going to have to be able to do is a combination of what's in the system and what I'm going to be running that they can do. You know, it's thing like Shadowrun. You don't need someone that can go in the astral plane. You don't need someone that can actually hack. You can get away without those things. But you can also... It's like, those are extra tools that are on top of those. I think probably for Cyberpunk also, you probably don't need someone necessarily that can hack either.
Yeah.
But it is an option that's there, you know? And it's something that your players could explore. And it's you know, adding levels to these tools, too. And kind of recognizing that kind of combination of things. And this does come down to also, like... Yeah. If I'm playing 5e and everybody comes to me with a bard, I'm probably going to be okay with it. We can make it work. Mm-hmm. If I'm playing 3.0 and everybody comes to me with a bard, I'm going to be like, someone's got to change the character, you know?
I don't know. I would. It depends, because like that's the one thing about. What did you say, 5e or Pathfinder?
I said 3rd edition.
Third
yeah,
edition.
You can't really do that in 3rd edition.
Yeah, you can. Okay.
By the time we're getting to 1st edition Pathfinder, you can do a little bit of like
with archetypes
and stuff, and things that you can play around with, not having the roles as distinct. But it's still a little bit there. But that's the beginning of that evolution away from there.
Yeah. No, I think honestly, Pathfinder 2e and 5e are versatile enough to where you can basically have a party of all one class who are all very different.
The big thing with Pathfinder 1e is a class doesn't matter so much as you want to have BAB spread out a little more between people. BAB is what's more important than class.
BAB and also and the saves.
Yeah.
So that way it's not like everyone's weak to will saves, meaning you decimate the party if you just have an AoE will save.
If you're doing 1e, you need at least one full BAB person to really be able to do an adventure.
Yeah.
And of course, you need a cleric. Cleric is not optional in Pathfinder 1e. You do need one.
Unfortunately, that's one of those ones that there's a lot of, like... I would say, if you're just doing a low-level campaign, you can probably get away without a cleric. Probably. You can get away with someone else that can do healing. But as soon as you reach, like, 10th level, so many enemies have so many types of statuses that you need a full cleric to get rid of.
Yep.
It just ends up being that that's a problem that is coming down from older edition stuff and from some of the rules set and stuff, things like that. So, you know.
Yeah. That's what I do like systems that allow for full diversity, or full, basically just full customization of everything. So it's just like, or that's not even the word. What am I trying to say? Basically allows for any composition to work, even if it's a little bit worse. Yeah.
I think
because there's optimization and there's like functional.
This kind of thing exists even outside of these very bounded systems. Like if I would take a system that'd be a point buy system, like something like one that I'm very familiar with, Paizo. Paizo's a system. You have points for everything. You spend points on everything. Again, like to a degree, certain versions of Shadowrun have that too, but Shadowrun has enough of the setting on its own that creates the bounds. Paizo is you create the world as a person usually. You know, it's whatever world or anime world if you're doing specifically. Again, it's a system that doesn't need to be anime, but it's made to be anime. Then you, when you're putting together the world, understand what things need to be done, and then you have to express to your players what kind of things are important. You know, like, oh, you're going to be doing a lot of martial arts-based things. They'll know they want to do physical fighting. You'll know that, like, there's a bunch of social things going on. They'll want to know they should have social things. So that's kind of where also you kind of express, with your familiarity with the setting, the mechanics, and what you're going to be doing with the game, to your players, before they do character creation, the kind of things that they might need.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that's where actually I think the opportunity to have players work on the characters together can actually be helpful too, if there's more importance on having roles. Like,
yeah,
again,
and that's the thing. There is a point where it depends on how tactical you want to run or what kind of game you want to run. Because that's the thing. If you're going to play a highly tactical game where players need to like really be careful with combat because you're going to like really pressure them with tactics and other kind of stuff, then yeah, maybe they do need a balanced party to combat that.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have them fight a single type of goblin because that's what makes sense to be there at the time, and it doesn't matter that, they have a full complement of healer, this is a different type of game.
Yeah. So, it definitely is something that can be very important of the balancing of your characters in a little bit, too. But, you don't want... I think it is important to, understand all this, and again, this is one of those big major things that I think it also comes down to communication. You have to communicate with the players, what you're doing, what you're setting up, giving them ideas about it, if it's important. It was sort of like, I gave some suggestions for Fall of Avonswell, but I didn't give a lot, because I knew the way that the game was going to be set up, there would be enough options that if you guys didn't choose certain things and abilities you could do something else. I wasn't, the way I'm setting up the game, I wasn't hampering enough stuff down that you needed, perfect party balance at all. Granted, there are some probably things that always help, having some frontline fighters, never a bad thing, having someone that has at least some kind of magical knowledge, never a bad thing, having someone that can do some healing, never a bad thing, I do think the team managed to actually fill long roles naturally without me having to do a lot, which was fun.
It's because we played Pathfinder 1E previously a lot.
I mean, what,
so
you've
kind of knew we needed to, but...
A swashbuckling rat folk, a spiritual man, a wizard, barrack, and
well, that's the thing. Like, I had another idea that I might have gone with so my sorcerer was my first idea, but my other idea was a swashbuckling minotaur. So, yeah. So, like, I had a backup if, like, oh, okay, someone else wants to play a wizard, I have a backup character, cool.
I mean, that's also, I think, is a good thing as a player to do, to have a little player flexibility, and maybe, like, talk with each other. Like, yes, GM puts down things, but then, regardless of, you're working with characters together, communicating with your other players, especially when you're like, hey, or like, as soon as the GM tells you, like, some basics, are like, what's everybody else chosen to be? Or what is everybody else kind of building? Or stuff like that, asking questions, getting information, or like, hey, do you know anybody's ideas or something like that? So that you don't necessarily step on other people's toes also, too, because I think that's where role balance, party balance can actually be another thing, too, is if everybody has Intimidate, and you're all rolling Intimidate, it's not necessarily fun, because it's sort of like a crapshoot of who gets it kind of thing, like that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that's why players do tend to regulate themselves, because they want to be unique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because, like, I mean... that's why it's like if someone else wanted to play, a wizard, I would be like, okay, maybe I'll do the swashbuckling. It's like I don't want to just fill the same role as someone else. And then, like, it reminds me of a time where we were playing in a game and we all had our roles, and we were playing Pathfinder 1E, and I picked a witch, who did a lot of buffing, and then everyone had their other roles, and then literally like the day, like a few days before, another player's like, I'm gonna play this character instead, and picked a socialite that buffed with the same buffs I do but better. Because they were using the GM, the GM was letting you use any third party like things, and so they picked some really crazy one that they found, and was like way better to buff than I was, and it was just like
not gonna lie, that's a story. Pathfinder 1E third party stuff. I've seen some great stuff. I've seen some really unbalanced stuff.
Mhm.
No, and that's the thing. It was really imbalanced, which is why I kept advice. Like the GM's like, I don't care. Like I'll challenge the party no matter what, But it's all like, yeah, but really, you make people pick the most broken things just so you can balance the party properly, balance the game properly. Yeah, I don't know why the GM went with that.
And also, again, that's the thing of it invalidated a lot of what you were planning for your character too. So it's kind of like one of those things. You, as the GM, have to make sure not to do that. But also, I gotta be honest, this is something that the player, you as a player, don't want to do that to someone else. Don't be a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I locked in my character first. Everyone else was deciding constantly, and I'm like, I'm gonna play this. It was like everyone else is still figuring out what they wanted, and I just decided. And then the other guy, he had gotten permission to do this like whole crazy thing using like importing like a third edition thing that he really wanted to use in Pathfinder, and it was just like, and then literally last minute after getting all these permissions and all these exceptions, he decided to switch it to this other broken thing he found, and that just totally stepped on my toes, and I'm just like,
Yep. Yeah. It's there's a good concept to keep in mind, whether you're a player or DM. And it is important to keep in mind that you're playing with other people, and just, it is something to keep in your back of your mind. No matter what system you're playing, I really think you do have to kind of keep it back of your mind as, like, what is my character going to be doing for the party? Kind of to ask that question, too. Like, certainly speaking, coming up with a concept, building off of that, but then, like, that also could help you with when designing your character about, like, what skills or special abilities I take and stuff like that. Heck, it's sort of like you can talk about Star Trek, too. Hey, all the different roles that are in Star Trek and the disciplines, You don't need all of them, but, it can help to have someone that's so it needs someone that can pilot this thing, or someone that can know about science, or someone that can know about medical. And, you fill roles in that one very easily, but that's, again, that's also just shit.
Yeah. I mean, really, when it comes down to roles, like, my bottom line would be, like, one, make it clear what kind of game you're running if you need party roles, because that's the thing, if you're going to play a very hard, tactical, and really challenging game, then you need good party balance. Or depending on the system as well. Make it clear to your players what's needed. And then also, if you want to make sure your parties aren't stepping on each other's toes. I mean, if two players want to play both want to play identical twin swashbucklers who have all the same stats, and they're okay with that, and it won't break your game, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, make sure that they both want that, make sure they both want to play, the same character. I mean, yeah, it's kind of annoying if, like, everyone has Intimidate, but if they all go off and intimidate different people to try and get a thing to happen, could work. There's a way to do it.
It's true. It just ends up that, you don't want your one really good skill to be outclassed by someone else.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing I always worry about, too. So, I'm great at Intimidation. That's the only thing I can really do. Oh, you have, like, 4 more Intimidation than me, so you can roll it and always succeed more than me. Huh.
If you made a character based around Intimidation, and your Intimidation is 4 lower than someone who didn't even try for it...
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Well, there are some games where that actually can be a difference, but...
Look, that's more jab at Pathfinder First Edition more than anything.
That is actually, that 100%, yeah.
But, I mean, something like that could theoretically occur with, like, a character in, like, maybe like a 5e game where I can't take let's say I can't take expertise, and I've got the best Intimidation I can have as, like a fighter or something. And then that guy over there takes expertise and can have all the hot
Actually, what I find really funny is this does come up a little bit in Joe's game, where you have a higher Arcana than me, and I'm supposed to be the Arcana smart guy.
I don't know how that happened.
Because I took expertise in it.
I took expertise. That's right. I took expertise because it kept coming up. So that's why I took expertise. I remember. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just
it's fine because in most cases it's nice to have 2 attempts at it. But
5e definitely because it's not as major. I think in the case of 5e, it's a lot more flexible. It doesn't matter as much.
It just especially the way Joe runs it, it's not as big of a deal. But I could totally see that being I'd be so annoyed if it was like a game where like Arcana really mattered and you were succeeding all the time and I wasn't. because the GM was like putting this thing high, the attempt higher. Because like I have a +8 and you have like a +9, I think. But I have like everything in it and you just have it casually, you know.
I just have expertise and a couple of. I think it's there are a lot of situations that you don't know about until the situation comes up too. But I think again, like as a player, as a DM, both in this case when it comes to building a party, kind of trying to find a little bit of balance in there, because again, it's like you're balancing it, even if it's not roles that you're using to balance it out. You as a party, you're balancing each other. You're creating this, situation where you're all kind of gonna work together in a way that works, and trying to find that out. You gotta take some steps towards it, no matter what, because you might not be able to catch all those problems that are gonna come up. You want to make sure you catch as many as possible for it. I think that's kind of it. Anything else on this one? Or we kind of hit this up for the usual discussion?
I think we got it pretty good.
I think you did a good job.
Cool. Again, it turns out, when we're doing stuff or talking about stuff, it inspires me to craft some things. But, let's talk about our week in gaming. How did everybody's Sunday go? I know we didn't have Joe's game, but that's this week.
I had nothing Sunday.
Okay. How about Monday?
Well, nope, I packed for my trip, and I went on my trip.
Yeah. Tuesday.
Tuesday, we did the Lightning's game. We don't actually remember what we did, but I think we, got crime jobs.
I'm not gonna lie. I've definitely had sessions where I'm like, I remember something happened. And I have a core of it. There's so much missing. We started
the process of getting crime jobs. I think.
Okay. Wednesday we had my game. It was fun. Definitely there was a lot going on with me that I can recognize that I do it.
I had no idea. You thrust me into a room with a person who I was supposed to know, and I had no idea what was going on.
Yes.
What's that meme where it's all like when you skip all the beginning cutscenes in a game? I have no idea who I am. I have no idea what I must do. All I know is that I must kill.
Did skip beginning cutscenes on you, and I think this is actually something I had thought about talking to you about like a week ago. I just forgot I hadn't done that. I really had. I was going to talk to you about that. I just forgot. That's also me being forgetful too. We got the team together. You named the team, your group. They're like, we should said like, hey, look, you don't need to, but if you want to create some kind of solidarity, because we're throwing you guys together in this entire thing, and we recognize that's not really easy for a bunch of random people that we kind of have assessed in an afternoon that you can work together. That's also why they're like, hey, maybe go get some lunch, hang out a little bit, try to spend the rest of the day. And tomorrow morning, we're going to send you on your mission, Spend some time making sure you can work together. We don't want this to go really badly. They're being smart about this. We're throwing a bunch of random people together in a thing. So, yeah. So, I thought it was fun. You had some lunch. Now you're going to go recruit a person. You convince the mayor to let you recruit them. So we'll have that next time. We'll see how well this goes. And you'll start a mission, actually. So, thumbs up. Hey. Anybody do anything on Thursday?
Thursday, I played some board games on my vacation. I bought River a board game because I like to buy gifts for people when I visit them. It is a 40k board game called Labyrinth of the Necrons. It's basically a little game where you control 4 Space Marines cooperatively, and you just make your way through a little dungeon. And the dungeon has 3 floors. Each floor has an objective. Pretty simple game. Good little hour to complete. A fun time.
I just realized I can do this. Anyway,
that's the thing. I had to unlayer stuff to see what you were doing. it's the curse of yeah, man. Again, I talk about this sometimes. Just need a third monitor.
Yeah, no, my brain just went. Wait a second. I use OBS so I can do the green screen as I do the OBS camera, and I just realized, wait, it's OBS. I can just import an image. So yeah, that's the meme I was referring to. That's how I felt.
Cool. Cool board games. Anybody do anything on Friday?
Friday I played the Stardew Valley board game. Pretty fun, chill time. A much more chill than playing the actual video game because it's less stressful.
I can understand that. I love Stardew Valley, but it can have some stress there.
One of our goals, because in the Stardew board game you get 3 quests you have to complete to win.
Okay.
One of the goals was everyone had to make 3 friends. We had to make 9 friends because 3 per player.
Yeah.
And I ended that game with 7 friend cards because no one else was doing it. So I just literally my turns consisted of I'm gonna go fish, and I'm gonna go befriend people.
Seems fun. Seems fun and a little silly too.
It is silly. It's a silly, cozy time.
Sounds nice. Again, it's one of those ones that I definitely I would like to try someday. There's a lot of board games I'd like to try. Maybe some things are on a certain simulator of tabletop games that perhaps I can find them and play them at some point in time. Maybe. Neat. Today, I know Worm.
Yes. Oh, did we skip Wednesday? No, we didn't. I talked about it. That was the whole reason I had the meme. Anyway. My brain cut out a few minutes of my life. Anyway.
Again, there have been sessions of Joe's game where I'm like, there have been sessions of Joe's game where I remember the big combat, a lot of storyline with that, and then people mention something at the beginning of the session. I'm like, wait, we did that? And it's something that's from parts of the session that somehow left my brain in the course of 2 weeks. So I have the basis of what we did, and I know about a lot of the big storyline moments, but there's these details that I'm like, holy crap, I don't remember that. So that happens. Anyway, today.
Yeah. Anyway, so today, we got... so I think we ended with 2 people being trapped by a monster plant underwater. Thankfully, one of our players had a scroll that allowed people to breathe or hold their breath for longer, which is really nice. I forgot what the spell is called, lasting breath or something like that. So thankfully, they didn't drown, because that was a big problem. Because drowning in 2E is apparently very deadly. Because after you run out of breath, you just start making increasingly harder death saves, saves against death, and if you don't, you die.
Yes. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not as familiar with the 2E one. I know the 3E one is only a smidgen less deadly, and I remember how bad that was. So, I can see that being pretty close to being dead there.
Yeah. So, But we managed to get them, so they were okay. Our thrashing about brought in another giant enemy to come fight us. Another giant fish. But then we killed that and got 2 more weeks of rations for everyone. Or sorry, 2 more days of rations for everyone.
Fish.
Another tree tried to fall on us. And then another branch tried to fall on us, and then another tree managed to fall on someone.
Yep.
And we kept going, and then we got attacked by a giant snapping turtle, which actually destroyed one of our boats, our canoes. But thankfully, someone used shape wood to put them back together. So we could continue down the river, otherwise we would have had to start going on foot. And then, yeah, I'm trying to remember if there was anything. Oh yeah, we found out we finally got to the point where we found the druids had died. So we were originally sent to this forest by a surviving druid who escaped a bunch of other druids dying, and so we finally found a place where there were like 8 dead druids, and we're like, okay, here's the spot where they died and started to try and run away.
The plot continues. Sort of.
So now we're just gonna head even deeper into the forest and hopefully not die.
I love the words "hopefully not die." You know, everybody enjoys that.
Yeah.
Anything else this week that I forgot about, days or times or things that people think of? I did this, but then again, you know, it's probably just more of a normal week otherwise for me. Oh, I you know what I can say? I did only a little bit of it, but I have definitely been enjoying. Even though I do have some jank on the what's the word? Interface. I like the Magic Gathering Forge Adventures. I've been enjoying that. I've played a little bit here and there. It's been nice to play some random Magic and deck build and stuff like that. Though it comes down to it of like, man, I really have to work on my like maybe deck building skills, because definitely like the pre-made deck they gave me, it's got some issues, and I've been making it better, but I definitely can feel that. And then on the interface where I accidentally turned on that I would skip my first main phase every turn, and I don't know how I did that. That's an option. I kept trying to do stuff before combat, and it would keep going to combat for me for a while.
Really?
Yeah. So, interesting game. Fun to play some Magic. Definitely have to understand the interface better. So that was the thing I did. I can say. Imagine it. Alright. I guess that's our week. In Tabletop, our weekly things. I think we can say our goodbyes today and head out. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you to Wyrm and Momo for joining me today. It's always fun to get everybody together and chat with us. We'll give some shout-outs first. Momo, do you have anything that you want to shout out?
I have no shout-outs.
Sure. And Wyrm, I guess you have your normal shout-outs that we have.
Yeah, I'm DiamondWyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm and at DiamondWyrm on Twitter and Blue Sky. Next stream should be tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. PDT.
Yeah. Oh, I saw what I did wrong. Wait. Alright, fine, forget it. I'm just not good at shoutouts today.
I can shout out myself.
No, I'll get it right.
I gotta shout it out myself.
Ow, you beat me to it. And then I got it right after you did it. Damn it. Curses. Look, you know, for some reason I don't know what I was misspelling both times. Myself, Terrence Dracovin. Please check my stuff out. Tuesdays, Fridays, more gaming related stuff. Wednesdays, Thursdays, tabletop stuff later in the day. Check out Fallout Am as well next Wednesday at 8. Join us there. Check out this show next Saturday at 8. If you can join us live for anything, make sure to do that. But if you can only join on YouTube, go check us out over there. Give the normal support if you're on the YouTube side of things. Make sure to check out my social media. That's all linked below. And I think that's the basic things. I hope you enjoyed today. You learned a few things. Maybe saw some things to check out. And, until the next time we chat, and, if people can join me, we can chat about some things, learn about things. Everyone out there, have yourself a good rest of your weekend. Good rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.